What I find really fascinating here, first, Noah Brodsky from Wyndham was supposed to be here. He actually flew in yesterday to be here and had to fly home for a family emergency. So he sends his regrets, and I wish he had been here. I'm going to try and channel him as the former brand guy and talk a bit about that, because there's some exciting and interesting information between him and the Wyndham Rewards program and a deal they did recently with Caesars that we'll talk about. But what I find fascinating is, as we talk about this, you're talking about creating a true affinity for the brand, a lifetime preference for Caesars and getting a gamer for life. You started a loyalty program in a very crowded market just a few years ago, which is pretty tough to create a new currency. And in both cases, you talked about true loyalty, not bribery, not a, you give me something, I give you something right back in some kind of currency. That's pretty interesting. And if you think about the brands that have loyalty, like Apple, like Amazon, they don't give points. They don't, in fact, you'd argue that Amazon, you pay an awful lot to be a loyal Amazon customer. You pay a premium to be loyal to them, and still we do it. So it goes well beyond that. I find that very interesting, that you've turned to the experience to developing true and bypassed the points junkies. That being said, points junkies exist. Frequent business travelers like points. How do you reach them with a true loyalty strategy? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I think you're right, Del, on that. And when we entered the whole loyalty space in 2008, again, we took the approach of let's just do it through recognition. But what we found was that we weren't getting enough engagement. And so by going to the points scheme, it was a reason to get more and also to know more about the customer and to prove what we thought was happening, which was that guests were staying at multiple hotels. Again, not being a Hilton or a Hyatt or Marriott, we don't have the same PMS, I don't think, in any single hotel. The way that it's integrated with the central reservation system, different at every single hotel. So imagine trying to understand what the customer's doing without having a platform on which they can tell you, right? So the points are actually telling us a story, because when the guest goes and they get points, now it's telling us a story. When they go somewhere and they don't get their points and they call us to claim their points, they have a reason to let us know that they stayed somewhere if for some reason in that whole cycle we didn't find out that they stayed with us. So that was really, from a business standpoint, why we went to points. Along the way, sure, there are people who are diligent about their points and don't miss one. But the benefit is more on the other side, is through the guests who are more about, I know more about this brand than I did before. I now know that these independent hotels are hooked together through a program called iPrefer. So as preferred hotels and resorts, maybe they knew us, maybe they knew some of our hotels, but this has expanded their breadth of knowledge about us. So our business decisions for getting into this game, I think, slightly different than why somebody else did and why we entered late. Right, very late, and believe me, we thought about, should we just join up with someone? Should we partner with somebody else? But we felt that we had a lot to offer. So, we're at 1.8 million members now. We're the largest points-based program for independent hotels. So it has a lot of opportunity in it, both for us and for our hoteliers.
Yeah, well, just one particular example of that. I stay in a preferred hotel in San Francisco, the Pier 2620 boutique hotel, really neat property. And I've been going there for a long time. The GM has kind of kept me up to speed on the evolution of the iPrefer program. And he said a couple of years ago, it was like there was no business coming from it. And it's up to 10% of his volume today is coming from this program. I mean, that's pretty astonishing. How much of that is because of the corresponds to the growth of your system? You've got 650 some odd hotels, right? It's nice growth there. How much is it that you've actually got travelers who are basically buying into the points?
Yep. It's that plus engagement from the hotels, right? So again, the guest, incredibly important in this whole cycle, but for us, the hotels are even more important. And another business reason for us to get into this market was actually providing value to the hotels, right? So come around corporate RFP time, checking the box in terms of, will my guests from XYZ company get points? We could never check that box. Now we could check the box. So it was an opportunity to cater to business travelers and to compete with the others who they could check the box and say, yeah, you'll get points when you stay with us. So that was one aspect of it. But back to your question about the growth of it, it's really just been momentum, right? So while we started in 2008, the points didn't come on board until 2014. We look at ourselves as still in the infancy stage of this game, of educating our customers, educating our hotels, educating the marketplace, that we are out there and what the program has to offer.
It'll be exciting to see how that continues to evolve, and I love the interplay between the experience and the getting guests to understand more and getting the hotels to treat guests differently because of the program. That's almost as if that happened organically.
It did,
intentionally. So you have recently, looking at Caesars now, you did a deal with Wyndham announced in June, where a partnership with Wyndham Rewards, which is pretty interesting. I was with IHG when we did something similar with Las Vegas Sands and the Venetian Palazzo. In our case, as the brand, this turned out to be probably the best loyalty program activation campaign we ever did, because we, at least for North America, we drove a spike in volume across every hotel in North America outside of Vegas because they wanted to stay in Vegas, which was pretty incredible. And within 6 months, it was one of the top 4 redemption properties for us. So I got people to stay more in Columbus, Ohio, because they could use points in Las Vegas. So great benefit for us. I'd like to hear from you. I'm assuming the same thing has happened for Wyndham, right? What's in it for you, and why'd you do the deal?
So I'll answer 2 questions there. So the Wyndham deal we did because we're all about getting distribution at rates that are agreeable for us. And so with Wyndham, we were able to expand. They have 50 million members, very loyal members around the country who fit our demo very well for most of our properties. And so we were able to expand our reach dramatically. I mean, we're in 12 real markets. So for us, we have a lot of gaps around the rest of the country. And so we were able to meet people who would like to come to Vegas. They could stay in Wyndham properties, and when they wanted to come here, we could sell them rooms that they could earn on in the Wyndham program or they'd redeem for us. And so we're 2 months in at this point in terms of being on their website as a real redemption option. So it's really early to give data, but early results are good. I don't know if they're as good as your IHG Sands, so I'm gonna call Noah when we leave here to see what we can do better, but I'm kidding. In all seriousness, it's really early, but yeah, early results are good. But the other part of it is that what you describe with IHG, that's our business model in our world today. So while we don't have many locations, we do have more US-based locations than any other casino company. And that's the model we use, which is we try to make people loyal to us in Kansas City so that when they want to go and on their splurge trip to Vegas, they will come and they stay with us, and they have a better status, so they get a better experience when they come here. And that's why they prefer us in their local market, so that when they make that trip, they can have the better experience. They can't have that if they go to Ameristar across the street or one of our other competitors, because they don't have the Vegas offering that we do. So we've used that hub and spoke strategy. That's been a big part of the Harrah's, Horseshoe, and Caesars model for the 20 years or so.
Do you see that program becoming a part of the gaming rewards program as well? Do you see some merging or assimilation there?
So I'd go the other direction. So I'd say we started in '98 as a gaming rewards program, and we're trying to get away from a gaming rewards program. So you started the question with points and how else to drive loyalty. I think there's a table stakes of points. Everybody needs to know what's in it for me, and there has to be something that you're going to get back that everybody is really easy to communicate to the customer. So it doesn't have to be points necessarily. I mean, punch card type thing. I mean, people need to know, if I do this, I will get that in return in some way. But that's, again, it's just table stakes because it's very easy to compete on that. Whereas, as long as people know they're getting something in return, and then you provide an experience on top of that, depending on your brand, depending on what you have to offer, I think that's where you really can differentiate yourself.
I agree. All right, we're going to take a Slido question here. And this is going to be one where we're going to chalk up a tick mark for one of our terms here. How do you see the benefits of your programs based on the next computer generations, like Generation Z? And particularly, I think it's relevant because Generation Z has grown up with these devices, right, permanently affixed to their bodies. They're connected in a way we would never connect. How many of you have seen the movie The Circle? You see that? You should watch that movie. It's about the permanent presence and the absence of privacy, the sharing of everything that is, to most of us in the room, just creeps you out, especially when the conclusion is, yeah, it's coming, it's happening. But to the true digital native generation, it will be. They live on these things. Mm-hmm. How can you take that and capitalize on that dynamic and others to not so much try to get youth to gamble, but to, in fact, create loyalty and preference from an early stage?
Let's be clear, we're not here to get you to gamble.
Of course
That's not what we do. For 21, we'd love to have you on the floor. In all seriousness, so a lot of our benefits align really well with what these people want. So they want access, right? So we give pre-sale access to all of our shows. We give, you can skip all of our lines when you reach certain areas. Like, these are the things people really care about. So we ask even our older customers, we ask them, for diamond status, for example, you get a $100 dinner, you get all your resort fees comped. All of you staying here know how much of a pain that is. You get those all free. You get parking for free, including valet. I could go down the list. And when we ask our customers, what do you care about the most? The number one thing is skipping all the lines. Because for any of you who've waited in a cab line, it's not fun in Las Vegas. And so we're positioned pretty well, because these are the types of things that consumers want. And it's more so than I want 2% cash back. I mean, that's what they're looking for. And then the other piece of it, I think, is customers are much more willing to engage if they feel a sense of achievement. And 2% cash back, they don't feel is a sense of achievement. But if you've seen this at conferences, I'm sure. If you give them a collection of things to fill out, you get a stamp for every one of the vendors that you go talk to, you'd be surprised at how many people will go talk to every single vendor to make sure they fill out their punch card. All right, our customers, we do the same thing. We ran a promo in the first quarter. I chuckle because the results were astonishing, because we ran a promo in the first quarter, and last year, the most properties that anybody in our system went to in the first quarter was 16. This year, and there were somewhere in the neighborhood of under 100 people that went to 15 or more. So there was a lot that went to 15, 16. This year we had 1,900 people go to more than 15, because we incentivized them and said, we'll give you a couple credits if you go to each property you go to.
Wow.
We had almost 70 people go to every single property in our system in the first quarter. So just for a sense of what that means you went to Phoenix, San Diego, Las Vegas, 9 places, Tunica, Mississippi, 2 places, Cherokee, North Carolina. I don't even know how you get to that property, honestly. Windsor, so you had to have a passport. Atlantic City, I mean, I could keep going, but as you can see, like, that's quite a quarter. Right?
Did they have to stay, or did they just have to get their card punched?
You have to spend. You basically have to spend the equivalent of $20.
Okay.
At any one of these properties. So I mean, I guess theoretically they could have been mailing their card around, but just by making it fun and making it interesting and making it achievement based, people were willing to do things they clearly were not normally willing to do. And I think that's a big takeaway for our industry is people aren't going to do things for the reasons they used to, which again is a couple bucks back. But they will do all sorts of things if you make them feel like they have an achievement, and if you let them share it on social, then you probably get double the engagement.
So, Michelle, how can you've got these young millennials and Gen Zs that have yet to establish preferences and behaviors, right? They're just beginning their travel consumption curve. You have an opportunity to win them. Any thoughts there as to how you might win?
Yeah, like Michael said, accessibility, I think, is key. But the other thing that's in the back of our minds is, and I look at my teenage sons a lot, like what are they doing and where are they loyal? And payment is key. I mean, we talked, somebody had up about how, China and the whole, there is no such thing as cash. I mean, I look at my kids, cash? Nope, they don't carry it. So the whole payment opportunity for us, especially being U.S. based, is something that we're really looking at is how do we make that whole payment process, including refunds, including credits, all those kinds of things really easy. So it's an unusual aspect, I think, to the question you just asked, but those are the things that we have to keep. It's about easy, right? They want their lives to be easy. They're not going to be carrying around the credit cards. They're not going to be carrying around cash. So what are they going to be carrying around? How are they going to be paying? So looking at the changing economy of payment is a super important one.
All right, so we need to close up our session, but I want to focus your attention on those in the audience who are developing solutions, services, technologies to serve the industry. So as we try to keep going on our quest to create true loyalty, true preference and affinity that doesn't involve a kind of institutional bribery, What do you want? What do you need help with? What would you encourage people to investigate in that you might potentially be interested in as you engage on this quest?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple aspects to that. Some of it's on property, right? About how do you get known as a brand that makes life easy on property, right? How many of us check into a hotel and are like, how do I turn on my lights? How do I close the blinds, right? So somebody mentioned earlier, like, hey, open my blinds, turn on my bathroom light, right? All that is just easy. That's all nice, easy in-room technology. And when we get to that point where I think that will be a distinguisher, make my life easy when I'm traveling on business, right? On the actual program side of things, I'll say the payment thing again, payment, accessibility, ease of use, and easy to educate, right? We have some tools out there that are fantastic and they can really make the guest life easy, but try explaining that to a hotel front desk agent in Mexico City or in Udaipur, right? They have to be able to understand what that tool is as well. It's not just the customer, but the person serving him in front of him needs to understand it. So training tools to go around this in easy, simplified ways, I think is incredibly important.
Excellent.
Yeah, so another story, when I was a consultant, we used to talk about how fast you could get from the plane to the highway, right? And that's how we would choose what airline you would fly, what rental car company you would use, et cetera, because it was all about you just want to get on with your day, right? You don't want to get stuck in all these other things. And so like my Nashville trip, I mean, we would fly Southwest not because it was better, but because it was faster to get off the plane and it was easier to get to the rental cars. And we'd take Hertz because they were the first one where you didn't have to talk to anybody and you could get in your car and you were gone. And so nowadays, a lot of those things have become table stakes now. And in our world, it's the same world. In the hotel business, it's the same thing. It's just, how fast can we get somebody onto the casino floor? We don't want you waiting in check-in lines. We don't want you dealing with all these things. So we want you to be able to do as much in advance as possible. And then you go to talk about payment. So we put in a mobile ordering solution at one of our properties. So you can order room service now from your phone, which on one hand, it just makes it easier. You don't have to call somebody when you're in your room, and that's great. But on the other hand, there's a lot of good use cases where you could be playing craps and you don't leave the heater when you're playing craps. Everybody knows that. But at the same time, you're hungry, so you want food. So what you can do is you can order your food, and it takes 45 minutes for room service. So you can order your food, continue your heater, 30 minutes later, go and get your food, as opposed to have to leave, sit in your room for 45 minutes as it's delivered. And the next wave of what we're doing, we'll have a tracker, so you'll get a ping telling you, all right, your food's on the way, you should probably go to your room. But you can think about all the use cases there of just how you can make your life so much easier that they're not terribly difficult if you think about it, but they're hard to operationalize, but they're not hard to conceptualize, and the technology is actually not bad these days to create either, but they have huge uplift in both customer satisfaction and revenue, because people just don't want to deal with actually communicating with people most of the time these days. They'd much rather do these things with technology. But the one comment I'll end on is you do need some form of redundancy. You can't make a service that is only available through technology, because all of your customers will not be able to use it, and there will be breakdowns that have to be serviced in some way. And you need to have that built-in redundancy, even if it's for the 5%, you need that redundancy.
Going back to what Paul said this morning, you got to close that,
Yep.
the technology gap with a human gap or fail-safe. Excellent. Thank you all very much. It sounds like there's some opportunities for the folks out here to think about. And if you've got one of these solutions, hit them up later on. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.